right, my guest is here, Garland Favorito, co-founder of Voter GA, as in Georgia. Voter GA's been on this show before, a repeat performance. He leads the election integrity issue in Georgia for over 20 years. He is a career IT professional, so he knows what he's talking about. These computers are stealing elections. VoterGA.org is his web address, votergaforgeorgia.org. And Garland is on the show. Hey, Garland, how are you?
Wayne, great to be back with you again. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. You know, I talk about stolen elections all day long. It's one of the reasons I've been banned and shadow banned and canceled all over the United States. I don't think anyone's ever been banned more than me. Between stolen elections and COVID vaccine is a killer, and Dr. Fauci deserves the death penalty for mass murder, I've been banned more than anyone in the United States for telling the truth. Just sticking my neck out there and telling the truth. You recently said that Georgia's own records show that U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff did not legitimately make the 2020 runoff, so he should not be a United States Senator. Explain what the records show.
Well, Wayne, on our voterga.org studies tab that anybody can go and see, you can go and look up our security recommendation study. And on page 18, I believe it is, of that, you'll find a Secretary of State's official election reporting for the morning after the election. And it shows that the runoff between, at this point in time, it was a general election between David Perdue, former Senator David Perdue, and Jon Ossoff. Perdue was holding an insurmountable 78,000 vote lead when there were only 13 precincts left to count in Fulton County. 158 of 159 counties had reported. And at that time, according to the Secretary of State's own numbers, David Perdue had a 78,000 vote lead over the runoff margin. Now, that's not just, his total lead was even more than that. But that was over the runoff margin because there was a three-way race, and the Libertarian candidate had about 2% of the vote. So he had made that up, plus another 78,000 on top of that. And there were only, according to Secretary of State's website, he had 78,000 margin vote lead with only 13 precincts left to count. That's maybe 20,000 votes. If you stretch that out, maybe 25,000. So basically, that was an insurmountable lead, and the President of the United States had a similar lead at that time.
Right.
But Secretary Ravensburger allowed 200,000 phantom votes to be added into the totals after the election, when he had already gone on NBC Today to say that it was a done deal, and essentially said that President Trump at that time had an insurmountable need as well. However, we had 200,000 or 300,000 votes, phantom votes injected, and that changed the outcome of both the presidential race and the U.S. Senate race here in Georgia.
And Garland, what's so amazing is it's not even just that he injected 200,000 phantom votes, which is stunning and horrible and fraud and stealing elections, but you would never imagine the 200,000 votes would be like 200,000 to 0 in favor of the Democrats, but they are. When they inject these votes, it's 200,000 to 0. Maybe to make it interesting, they make it 199 to 1,000. But the point is, it's so ridiculous, over the top. There's no other, even in like pure black Democrat neighborhoods, there's no 200,000 to 0 in the history of America and anywhere. But there is when they steal elections. They stick 200,000 late votes in. They're mail-in ballots with no voter ID, and they're all for one side, Democrats. How is that not screaming like a Vegas neon sign? I live in Vegas. Stolen, stolen, stolen. This is insane that we allow this to keep going.
Yeah, well, you saw the same thing in Los Angeles. where
Spencer
I
Pratt.
guess it's Neitha Raman comes back with from 8 points down. She gives a crying election concession speech on election night, and then miraculously makes the runoff out there, besting both Spencer Pratt and Karen Bass miraculously. Saw the same thing out there. But yeah, we've had this in Georgia. It's just unbelievable. And for this reason, no votes should be allowed to be counted after election
Of
day.
course not.
We even have, UOCAVA votes can be delivered on time. We have the technology today. There's no need to even accept those. And by UOCAVA, I mean foreign and overseas and military. Those can come in on time. There, we have all kinds of techniques and procedures we can use to ensure that all votes are in on election day and nothing else is counted after election day.
Well, of course, that's the way they're stealing elections, Garland. That's the way they do it. They get the count on election night. And now they know exactly what number they have to beat. They know you're up by 20,000. They know they've got to put 30,000 in that are all on one side. If you're up by 80,000, they know they got to put 100,000 in. That's how they do it. And that's why they stopped the vote on election night in 2020 to count, and then in the middle of the night, interject whatever they needed to win. Well, nobody was watching. There were no witnesses. They stole it.
Right, and we saw that in Wisconsin, from Milwaukee
Pennsylvania.
County in 2020. We saw it in the other states as well. Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all had the same scenario. Election was stolen after election day. As you said, once you know the number you need, you just inject the ballot you need to win. And we've got to stop this. We have a national security crisis here.
Well, and the Supreme Court just allowed it, so you can't stop it, right? The Supreme Court said it's legal to count after Election Day. That was one of the all-time horrible decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. With a 6-3 conservative Republican advantage, we lost 5-4 because Roberts went the wrong way and Amy Coney Barrett went the wrong way. These people are idiots, or they're bought and paid for, one or the other, Garland, because who would ever support counting days after the election? They could have ended it right there. So now, are you allowed to? I don't even know what the law says. If the Supreme Court allows it, can you as a state turn it down? Can some individual state say, no, we won't allow counting after Election Day? Or because the Supreme Court allowed it, does that mean it's the law of the land and you can't undo it in any state?
Well, no, the state laws still take precedent, Wayne.
Okay.
So, for example, in Georgia, we do not allow any ballots to come in after Election Day, with the exception of the overseas and military. They get 3 additional days. I would argue that that's not necessary any longer. That's something that dates back 20 or 30 years when we didn't have technology to get ballots across from overseas. We don't have that problem today. So we need to fix that, and states can fix it. Some of them have already fixed it. We're halfway there, a little bit better. But we
So clear something up for me. So in 2020, you didn't have that law. That's a new law since 2020, because in 2020, they counted ballots long after Election Day, and you must have changed the law between then and now. Is that correct?
Well, that's a really interesting point, Wayne. So technically, they got around that by saying that the ballots were in and they have so many left to count. So what the law was supposed to say, and in fact, what the law did say in 2020, is that all the counties have to report the number of votes or number of ballots that they have left to count if they have not finished counting. Well, the counties reported their numbers. And as I mentioned before, they reported that they had finished, they had counted all their ballots. And in spite of this, the Secretary of State somehow came up with another 200,000 ballots that came in after that he alleged were still in the hopper, so to speak, that just had not been counted. So in other words, they've been received, but they have not been counted yet. So technically, you can count after election day, but you cannot receive a ballot after election day in Georgia unless it's an overseas or military.
It's funny as you say that, because what it strikes me as, to me, when people say, what's your proof, Wayne? What's your proof? No one ever has real proof, but you do have proof. You have common sense proof. The only people that have ever won after election day when losing on election day were Democrats. In the history of America, no Republican has ever been losing on election day and then counted ballots and come back to win 5 days later or 7 days later or 2 weeks later. Only Democrats. That's the only ones. And when someone interjects 200,000 ballots and you go, we don't know where they came from, it's the weirdest thing ever, and 200,000 ballots, it's never a victory for Republicans. It's only a victory for Democrats. Look at Minnesota. I remember when Norm Coleman was winning an election by like 200 votes for U.S. Senate, and Democrats found a box, Garland, of like prison votes, and it was like 300 votes to 0 against Norm Coleman, and he lost the election. Nobody ever finds a box with Republican votes. They only find a box late in the game with Democrat votes. Doesn't anyone find that funny?
I think it's a heck of a coincidence.
Right.
I mean, and in fact, it's a little bit too much to be a coincidence. So,
Exactly.
So the point is, we've got to stop this, and we've got to stop it one way or another. It is a national security emergency. If the Supreme Court doesn't want to do anything about it, and Congress doesn't want to do anything about it, it's still the right thing to do. I would hope that the president can basically achieve that with a national emergency declaration.
It's funny because President Trump addressed the nation a few weeks ago, and he announced that millions of declassified intelligence documents have been found. He revealed how U.S. elections have been compromised, continue to be unsecure. He talked about China specifically breached our voter rolls and took, I think it was like 250 million voter rolls. And, the only guy in America that's been talking about this nonstop is me. Nonstop, that I believe COVID was used by China to steal the 2020 election, and Democrats worked with them. I really believe that. I believe that China said, look, you want Trump out, we want Trump out, we got to destroy his economy first. So let's do that with COVID, and then we'll use COVID to scare people that they shouldn't come out and vote. They can vote by mail-in ballot, and everyone will vote by mail-in ballot with no voter ID. We'll interject millions and millions of fake ballots into the system, and next thing you know, Biden has 81 million votes, more than Obama ever got, more than Reagan ever got, more than Trump ever got, more than Clinton ever got, more than Obama ever got. It is the most ridiculous thing in history. He never campaigned. He hid in his basement in Delaware, and he got 81 million votes, and no Democrat before or since has ever come close. It was fraud.
Well, and he ran the campaign out of his basement. So if it was so successful, why didn't Kamala Harris run her campaign out of the basement?
We should run our campaigns out of the basement. It's so successful.
Yeah, exactly. But, Wayne, so you mentioned China. There is corroborating evidence for what you're saying in these declassified intelligence documents. And that was the piece that just blew me away more than anything else, was the Chinese influence on our elections dating back to about 2018. And the declassified intelligence just lays out this incredible story about what they were doing. They had the 20,000 fake driver's licenses that were imported into around the country to get fake voter registrations. They hacked, bought, or stole 220 million voter records to mine the Americans' PII, their personal identifying information. And then, but then probably the most amazing thing of all to me was they had this massive election influence campaign going on using not only just social media, but
BLM.
BLM.
Black Lives Matter. That was all backed by China to try and create crisis and chaos and make Trump look bad, riots in the streets, unrest everywhere.
Well, exactly. They were using racism and everything they could to denigrate President Trump. And it goes, the intelligence documents go through all this. And it's absolutely stunning once you read them to see how massive an attempt that they were trying to implement to unseat President Trump in 2020 and beyond.
They are such traitors, and they're traitors today. Because you know what I said the other day on TV? It was one of my America's Top 10 Countdown, and one of my Final Four 2 weeks ago was that, again, my gut has never been wrong on TV. Whatever I say, people go, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, and it always comes true. Every single time for years on TV. My gut says Democrats are working with Iran. I believe they're trying to prolong the Iran war. They're telling Iran, tell Trump you'll do a deal, and then get out of the deal, and then do a deal, and then get out of the deal, and keep the war going until the midterms. Make sure that you make Trump look bad. And they're passing along, I believe, classified information. Whatever they find out, they give to Iran, so Iran knows everything, every move we're going to make, so that Trump looks foolish and loses the war heading into the midterms. I really do believe they're complete traitors, and I think they sold out to China in 2020, and now they're helping Iran win the war. Or try to win the war. Obviously, Iran is not going to win the war, but they're helping them extend the war.
Yeah, and Wayne, it's not just the Democrats. Probably the most chilling thing in this whole, all of the documents were that the U.S. intelligence officials were in the tank with the Chinese Communist government. They were conducting a massive cover-up of the Chinese influence into the 2020 election throughout the 2020, the year of 2020. And it was not just the CIA, which I had always thought was involved, but it was also FBI, massive FBI and NSA, and even the INR, the State Department's intelligence bureau as well. They were all in this conspiracy to prevent the president of the United States from knowing that the Chinese Communist Party was trying to rig the U.S. 2020 election.
Well, and listen, everybody's saying, everyone on our side is saying what you're saying, that the Chinese tried to rig 2020. They didn't try to rig it. They succeeded, Garland. They beat Trump, and they beat him by doing what you're saying. In every single state, Trump was ahead by huge margins, and then when we woke up the next morning, he was suddenly behind. Every vote that came in was 200,000, 300,000 to zero against Trump. It was an obvious steal. Anyone could see it. You'd have to be a moron. You know who's in on it? The media's in on it. The judges are in on it. All the liberal judges. I mean, it's so hard to defeat all these people. Everyone out there, they're all part of the deep state and the DC swamp. A friend of mine has a sister. His sister is one of the most important judges in America. She's in charge of a gigantic state, all the judges in their state, Garland. And he tells me, and again, I wouldn't say any names. I never want to compromise a friend, even though this person's a terrible person, his sister, but I'm not going to ever name a name and embarrass my friend. But she's a judge. She's in charge of all the judges in a state. And he says she's a lifelong Republican. And now she hates Trump with such a passion. There's something weird going on. All these people, whether they're Democrats, communists, or rhino Republicans, they have this obsessed hatred of Trump, like Glenn Close in that famous movie. They want to boil a bunny rabbit to defeat Trump. They all hate Trump so badly. It's like a sickness. And his sister is this important judge. Her whole life now is hating Trump. She's a lifelong Republican, but she hates Trump. It's so weird. In my opinion, all the judges are part of a government employees union. And that's what changes them all. They're all part of the government, which makes them part of the deep state and the DC swamp, and they want their pensions to be bigger and bigger. They're all against the people. They only care about Big Brother. They want the government to get bigger and bigger. And if Trump wants to cut government, they hate him, and they're obsessed with hating him. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, and we have had enough corrupt decisions from judges in our lawsuits to prove that that's true, Wayne. It's just awful. I mean, the judges, to me, I think that's probably the thing that blew me away also as much. I never realized when I got into this and filed a few cases years ago to try to ensure honest elections, I never realized how corrupt the judges are in America. The whole judicial system is
filthy.
Filthy.
Disgusting. Filthy, disgusting. Dirty, filthy, disgusting. I think bribed. I got to tell you, I don't think it's just they're mentally, they're mentally nuts and communist. I honestly think the only reason a judge would take the side again and again of illegal aliens who murder and rape American citizens is because they're on the payroll of China or they're on the payroll of the Mexican drug cartel. And I know there's nothing I'm saying is nutty because people have already forgotten. If you watched old gangster movies, for the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, every judge in New York was on the mob's payroll. Every police captain in New York was on the mob's payroll. Well, the money that the Mexican drug cartel makes and the money that China makes off of illegal drugs getting through the border is so big, it makes the old mob look like a joke. They're talking about, hundreds of billions of dollars a year. You don't think they're bribing judges? Of course they're bribing judges. And they're bribing police chiefs and police sheriffs. Of course. And they're bribing Democrat politicians. There is so much money in drug trafficking and human trafficking and child sex trafficking and pedophilia that I think they've just bribed the whole Democrat Party, all the judges, and a lot of rhino Republicans too. They're on the take.
Exactly, and it's. I know you said this before, but it's basically a uniparty.
Right.
The machines have elected the judges or selected them would be maybe a better word. So they're compromised. And basically what we end up is Trump going against the entire uniparty, which includes, almost all the Democrats and quite a few Republicans. So it's an uphill battle, but he's got the people behind him, and he's been strong all along. So I'm hoping that he will really continue to be strong and come down hard on and to solve this election integrity crisis that we've got going on in America right now.
Well, last thing I'll bring up, because I don't know if you know this, but I'm the guy who invented no tax on overtime, and I'm the guy who invented no tax on Social Security and brought up to Trump, and he adopted them, and they helped him win the election, and then they're the biggest part of his accomplishments so far in his second term of his big, beautiful bill. No tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. I invented those. So I've invented a new idea. I'm a very creative guy. I'm a businessman, and I keep coming up with solutions. I invented national security emergency for elections. And others are talking about it now, but I don't know if they're acknowledging that it was Wayne Root's invention, that you can't pass the SAVE Act. It's never going to pass. You're never going to get them to throw out the filibuster. I've said this for 6 months. It's unpassable. It will not pass. Too many rhinos, never make it happen. And even if you did pass it, it does nothing to stop many of the things that cause stolen elections, like mail-in ballots with no voter ID and like machine voting. We need paper ballots. You can do a national security emergency for elections, and only a president can declare it, and then they can't take it to court. There are no legal challenges. The Supreme Court ruled in 1983. You can only upend it or overturn it with 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress if a president declares a national security emergency. So he needs to declare a national security emergency for elections. And I believe from my contacts, the White House, he's going to do it by late August, early September. And Democrats are not going to be able to stop it. And it's going to give us proof of citizenship, photo ID, mail-in ballots are going to be severely, strictly limited, and hopefully paper ballots. It might be too late for it, I don't know. But I think it'll include no machines, paper ballots. That's the only way we can save the midterms, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you too. And I just want to emphasize that last point is that we have got to ensure that we can count the votes correctly and accurately. The machines are counting them. Logic and accuracy testing cannot detect malware-based fraud. The audits that most states are doing are fake. They don't really work. There's no transparency. They secretly count the votes with secret proprietary software. Then they secretly preserve the ballots. All that secrecy has to end. It has to be out in front. And then may the best man or woman or party win. Whoever wins won, and everybody knows it, and they can accept the results if they can prove it to themselves. So that's where we've got to be in future American elections.
Our only chance is patriots like Garland Favorito. He's the co-founder of Voter GA, as in Georgia, leading the election integrity issue in Georgia for over 20 years. Brave man, puts himself right on that line. Career IT professional. His website, voterga.org, voterga.org. Garland, we appreciate everything you do. Thank God you're fighting for us in Georgia. We need Garland Favorito in all 50 states. We don't have it, but I'm sure there's a few other people similar to you, but there's only one Garland. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. And our volunteers are great. That's what makes us great.
We need to clone you. We need a clone of Garland in all 50 states. I pray we can make it happen. And we get a national security emergency, too, so we can win the midterms, or Trump's presidency is basically neutered. All right, that's it. Thank you, Garland.